Welcome to Conversations. My name is Jason Plotkin. I am the Program Director at Congregation Emanu. And every week we sit down with a member of the congregation, the community, or perhaps from the sports world to discuss the current state of affairs. Since sports has resumed in various forms and fashions over the last few months, we've had several guests from the sports world to explore what is going on. We've had a broadcaster, we've had a sports director, and now we're going to take a turn towards college athletics. But as we've seen sports return, there have been limited to no fans at sporting events across the landscape. Nonetheless, marketing and promotions is critical to keep these teams and athletic programs in our view. Today, we're excited to learn what our neighbors at Rice University are doing as we have the Assistant Athletic Director for Marketing in the Rice Owls Athletic Department, David Pillen, as our guest. David, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Jason. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm so glad we could talk to you today. Before we learn a bit about you specifically, tell us about your role and responsibilities for the Rice Athletic Department.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, first off, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be on this interview and stream and virtual, whatever you want to call it now these days. But yeah, happy to be on here. And my role at Rice, like you said, I'm this AD for marketing. A lot goes into that. As you can imagine, your experience in college athletics, especially at a place like Rice, we wear a lot of hats, multiple hats, and so you really kind of have your experience, a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And so whether it is ticketing, video board, game experience type things, marketing and sales, creative, video, graphic design, communications, we're pretty much, involved and work across a lot of different departments. And so my role specifically, I oversee 6 different people in our department. And so that directly is in line with our marketing department, our creative department. So creative video and creative graphic design, and then also our video broadcasting department. And so I oversee all of that as well.
All right. So you're at Rice University right now. I know you have experience at other institutions. Give us a glimpse about what got you to Rice, what you did prior to coming to be a neighbor of ours there at South Main.
Yeah, so I guess long story short, I was born in Nebraska, but when I was 10, my parents divorced and I moved to Houston with my mom. My aunt and uncle lived down here in Houston. So I actually grew up in Houston, went to high school here and whatnot. But my dad and my uncle played football at Nebraska. And so that was always a dream of mine to follow in their footsteps and play football at Nebraska. So out of high school, I got the opportunity and chance to do that. And so athletics has always been kind of always a part of my life, and especially college athletics. I've always looked up to, growing up, looked up to those football student athletes. And as I became a student athlete myself, the community and the higher education space, and the growth and things that experiences and things that happened for student athletes in college and during the 4-year, 5-year time frame was really impactful, especially for me. And so I ended up transferring from Nebraska to Abilene Christian, and I finished playing football there. It was at Abilene where I learned that you could have a career in sports through administration. And so I always thought that I was going to be a football coach, just because I wanted to have the same impact on people around me that other coaches and administrators had on my life growing up. And so I just wanted to be able to give back and do that same thing for people, within that age of 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's just a significant time, I think, in your life where you really build values and characteristics that will be with you for the rest of your life. And so I was involved in this group called the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And it was through that group at Abilene that I learned that you could have a career in administration in college athletics. And so I pursued that, networked like none other, and tried to build good relationships and purposeful relationships with people in the industry. I was lucky to have the opportunity to be on the National Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And so there's 3 different levels when you're talking about an NCAA, structure, right? And so you have the national level, conference level, and then the campus level. And so I had opportunity to serve our the Lone Star Conference at the time at Abilene Christian. They're now in the Southland Conference, Division I FCS, but had the opportunity to serve our conference in the Division II National SAC. And so it was, really through that experience that I was able to create a lot of good relationships that helped kind of put me in the position to be in a position to, pursue a career in athletics and in administration. So right out of my time after I got my master's, I graduated, got my master's at ACU, and then my first job out of ACU was at McNeese State in Louisiana. And so Tommy McClellan, he was the AD there at the time, very well regarded. I think at the time at McNeese, he was the youngest sitting AD in the country, I think 23, 24 years old. And so he hired me just as a marketing assistant at McNeese. And so I loved my time in Lake Charles, and the people there are incredible. McNeese is a special place as well. But I spent 8 months there or so. Tommy, when I first got there, he was only there for 3 months, and then he got the AD job at Louisiana Tech. And then the position opened up 6-7 months later at Louisiana Tech, and I pursued that and was able to follow Tommy to Louisiana Tech. So spent 4.5-5 years at Louisiana Tech. And then another long story short, my wife and we were high school sweethearts. She followed me to Nebraska as well, and she was on the cheer team at Nebraska. But when I left, we broke up. So we were apart for 8 years, and then we reconnected towards my last year at Louisiana Tech. So it was kind of through that experience where we were looking to try to get back to Houston. And I had actually connected with Tanner Gardner, my boss now. He's our chief operating officer here at Rice, a year prior to there being any position open at Rice. And he just said, hey, if there's any, opportunity that would ever come available at Rice, would love to, pursue it, or just, keep me in mind. I've always been, kind of at that point in time trying to potentially get back to the Houston area or just Texas in general. And so that happened. And in 2018, or in 2017, the winter December timeframe, this position opened up. So I was able to pursue it, and I moved back to Houston in late February 2018. So I've been here ever since.
Well, that's really neat. We all come back home. I grew up in Houston, and here I am back in Houston, back at a synagogue I grew up at. So it's really cool to have that opportunity to come home. And I know you really do appreciate being back home. But you brought up that you worked your way up through the college ranks as a student athlete and have worked at numerous universities. I really think that what gets lost in things is just the various constituency groups that an athletic department on a campus serves. I think a pro team, very different. Obviously, high school has some interesting caveats to it, but a very interesting components to it. So tell us a bit about the various constituency groups you serve at Rice University.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you work across so many different departments in people, and a campus is so multifaceted, right? And so I like to think, at least of our department, and as it's evolved over the many years in athletics, just the amount of content, right? Like marketing used to just be, okay, you put up a billboard and you're okay, and okay, here's the ticket sales for the weekend, and that's all marketing and advertising really ever was. now it's evolved into this deal where it's a lot more content generation, content driven marketing, communications, um, framing the right messaging, being very consistent in that messaging. And so, not only do we have to work hand in hand very closely with our communications department, um, but all of our other teams, right? And so I like to think of us as this umbrella, right? We have this Rice Athletics umbrella, and what are the themes that are important to that and the messaging behind all of that. And then you come in and every single team has its own story, its own theme, and the things that they want to accomplish that are important to them. And so we as a department, or a marketing department, have to be very flexible, right? And being able to work across multiple teams and organizations and departments. And so I guess I was referring to, I like to think of ourselves as an ad PR agency for 16 different organizations, teams, in departments, right? Because we have our OWL club, right? So they're basically like another team. So any donor support or messaging and content and advertising and branding that goes out for them, it's kind of under that Rice Athletics umbrella. And then you have all of our sports, and it can be a lot, right? But and then we work hand in hand with the university as well, and make sure we're good partners with public affairs and other even departments on campus, whether it's the graduate school or Glasscock or the Door Institute. I mean, there's just so many different things within the university and the campus that we have to, not have to, but we get the opportunity to be a part of. And so I think that's the unique thing about working on college athletics. A campus like this is just the amount of constituencies that you do get to work with and align and partner with. And so I don't think there's anything like it in any other organization or industry in the country.
Yeah, and having worked in a college athletic department and spending time as an active student leader as an undergrad, I think college campuses, especially high-profile ones, are very, very unique, and it's a very interesting experience. But we're going to turn our focus to COVID, and I think marketing has changed dramatically due to COVID. But let's start back prior to COVID. So Bryce, a lot of momentum, women's basketball team under Tina Langley, probably going back to the NCAA tournament. Baseball, I think everyone in this community is very familiar with the success historically, at least in the last 20, 30 years, especially under Wayne Graham's leadership, was just getting underway. But there's a lot going on in the sports world. All of a sudden it stops. I think, we always look to summer to recharge for those of us who worked in college athletics or do. But so what happens? What was your summer like? I mean, start and stop. I mean, what was going on this summer? How did you guys adjust to just all of a sudden a halt in the calendar?
Yeah, I mean, I think we went from having, what was it, 120 some events, right, on a given calendar year, or 30 baseball games that we were getting ready to do right there, and it all kind of comes to a stop, and then we don't know if we're going to have events for a while, and then it ends up being I think it was like 170 days or something without having one event. And so that's kind of our mantra, or kind of our bread and butter, right? Is we're an event based organization, and so people come to Rice Athletics for the event. And so when you kind of have that stripped away from you and not able to have that as your value proposition, as your product, your main product offering to people, it can be difficult. But I think like you said, summer is sometimes the time frame where we are able to recharge, because we don't have a lot of events going or anything like that. It was an interesting time frame from that March period all the way to September, October here, where I think we were just as busy, even though we transferred to working from home and doing more virtual events and different things like that. I think the planning and the preparation and different things that we had to take into account just around COVID, and things changed. It seemed like by the hour in the day, there's just so much uncertainty, that you had to be flexible, right? And so, but at the same time, I think our organization, we at least have kind of a working mindset, right? Like there's kind of this barometer of, hey, this is the level we consistently need to be at to continue to move our organization forward, right? And so I don't think the amount of work, like it's not like we just took the 6 months off and didn't do anything. I think we just shifted our mindset and continued to plug in and create new product offerings and engagements and experiences that we can, like I said, engage with our constituents and fans and alumni and everything like that throughout this whole time period. And so, like I said, I don't know that it kind of seemed like what do you call it? It's just like a time warp almost. I just felt like every day was the same, Groundhog Day type thing. It's been a really weird time frame. The first 3 months, it was like, man, are we ever going to get out of this? And then we kind of came out and, had a better mindset, and, we adapted to working from home more, and our communications as a team, we were able to get that, really, we actually became more efficient, I think, sometimes working from home rather than all the things that we have, because when you're in the office, things can just come up out of nowhere, and then it derails your whole day sometimes. So, yeah, I don't know, there's silver linings within all of it, but like you said, I think from just the workload capacity type thing, I think we just didn't take time off, right? It just wasn't like that, but we shifted our mindset, and I think we were doing the same amount of work capacity to stay engaged with our fan base, as if we were still trying to have events.
So one of the things I talk about often, and I feel good about our synagogue, is that we had some key things in place that we were able to lean on. Obviously, streaming, I felt really good about that. But I think you brought up a good point, that you guys flexed what you were doing. It's not that you stopped cold, but you flexed what you were doing. Tell us some of the things that were easier to flex. Obviously, you can't flex a game day experience, right? But what are some of the things that you're like, all right, we're just going to take this to a digital platform and we're going to succeed? What were some of those things?
Well, the other thing that's been kind of neat, and like I said, the silver lining of COVID and whatnot, is kind of the forced nature of technology and adoption of it, right? And so there's been certain platforms and things that have been around that we might have used in the past, and we're pretty forward thinking and innovative already from a digital standpoint. So we're probably well ahead of other organizations from just a media and a digital standpoint, and the things that we're creating content for, or like you said, streaming or anything like that. So I think we're kind of on the forefront of those things, and so like it was easier to flex and do different things. But I think the forced nature of everybody being on a phone call nowadays, or just in the last 6 months, almost seems archaic now. It's like, why don't you just FaceTime me or Zoom me? And so the forced technology and adoption of that, I think, has really been a silver lining for us, because we're able to now engage and connect with so many more people in a scalable way that we were really only able to do in the past if we had events. And people came to the event. Now we can do it any day, like a flip of a switch, and it's not a very large lift for us to do it. And so one thing that was neat right at the onset of COVID was we started to do Facebook watch parties, and so that's like a new technology that was kind of recently developed, but not many people used it until COVID hit. And so we would stream or premiere. It looked like it was streaming live, but it was really just a premiered recording of a game archive. And so we would highlight past games, create graphics around it. Like we did the 2003 national championship game, and everybody's seen that game so much, but nobody's ever really watched it together on one platform. And so that was neat to see people commenting on it, watching it together. We recreated graphics of the starting lineups of the team and everything like that, and did on Twitter the play-by-play and inning score updates. So we tried to make it recreate that game day feel of a past game, and I thought that was kind of neat.
You kind of segued into my next question. You kind of even brought it up. Silver linings. Obviously, this was a new way to engage people and change how we do things. But have you picked up any new fans or new demographics, or maybe brought people back into the fold that you might not have engaged before? I think you mentioned again the 2003 College World Series championship, which might have brought some alums back who really had some ties to that. But what are some of the ways you've been able to bring new people into the fold, or reach back and bring people back that haven't been associated because of this?
Yeah, I think that's one of our core missions, just through what we do from an outreach standpoint at Rice, and within kind of our marketing philosophy, we're trying to always reach new fans and fans of Rice. You may not have ever had to go to Rice or be an alumni, but we believe that there's a large demographic of people in Houston, fourth largest city in the country, and if once you come to Rice and you come inside the hedges, it's a nice place to be. And I think people really resonate with the family experience and atmosphere that we're able to provide. And so, one thing right off the bat, I like to refer to these new products that we're creating is our intellectual property, right? And so our IP. And one of the things that we've done just this past week, it was Red Ribbon Week, and it was something we've never really participated in before, but we developed through a website with a password protected module site page, to where there was a free option and a paid option, and if you registered for the free option, you got a video emailed to you from Sam and the Owl, and registered into the free version of our kids club and our Rice Buddies program. And so it's actually a pen pal program with our student athletes that we've developed out of our Vision for Victory strategic plan and community outreach. So there's a lot of things that are going on and building into this, but we developed a Rice branded Healthy Owls drug-free pledge experience. And so Christian Covington, he plays for the Cincinnati Bengals now. He recorded a video for us doing the pledge online. So if you paid for the Healthy Owls drug-free pledge, you were able to get this experience and download a certificate to complete it. And so that's something that we've never done before, but because of this larger focus on kind of these digital experiences and reaching new audiences, so the K through 12 space and the youth that are going through these experiences, I think is really big for us, because now they're being introduced to Rice athletics through a Red Ribbon drug-free pledge that they probably never would have known who Rice was if not for that.
Right. It's interesting. I think back as you talk about this, my first exposure to Rice athletics, I knew someone on the football team that was a son of one of my mom's coworkers, but I remember Rice sending us things home to our school, discounted tickets, et cetera. And I remember going to Southwest Conference games back in the day. And I mean, one of the highlights as a young kid was getting to run on the field and high-fiving the student athletes as they came out. So you build these connections, and those are, someone now, I don't want to say how old I am, but those are memories that, last a lifetime. And I think it ties into my next question. you just mentioned you got involved in something you hadn't been involved in before. So what has this taught you about sports marketing, COVID? I mean, and marketing in general, I guess you can say. I think, you've been in the business at multiple stops. Marketing is marketing, but it changes significantly with our current state of play. So what are some of the big takeaways that you have from COVID from a marketing lens?
I like I said, I think you can't, when you say marketing, it's just so multifaceted, right? I mean, you do a podcast, oh, I'm marketing, right? I don't know. So there's just so much to it. And so I think at the end of the day, it's really being flexible in how you engage with people and how, like, the strategic ways that you go about it. I think they evolve over time, but like you said, our our value proposition, the things that we have to offer will never change, right? And so that's a high academic, high athletic performing experience on a campus that is, one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. And when you come to Rice, you're part of our family. Like, that bare minimum will never change. Um, but the ways that we tell that story and tell the story of our student athletes can evolve, significantly over time. So I think that's probably marketing in a nutshell. Like I said, we have our umbrella, but the things that go on underneath it variously to reach outside the hedges will always change as we go along, or as we find new mediums to connect with people. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I love about marketing, is that it's very much like playing on a football team and the team orientation of that. And so you're gathering people together for a common goal to achieve something. And for us, it's gathering a community together to support our student athletes to be successful.
A few more questions before we go. We had a viewer submitted question, and you mentioned Sammy the Owl. I think Sammy the Owl and the Rice Owl marching band, the mob, if you will, are highlights and keystones of Rice's reputation in this area. What are some of the ways that you're able to get them involved? I mean, I think a lot of us have seen the mob do all sorts of great things about addressing issues in our community nationally or at other institutions. However, ways you're able to keep the mob and Sammy the Owl involved when they're not able to perform in the usual ways.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, doing these different virtual deals that feature their performances or their personality, right? Like Sammy the Owl has its own Twitter account and different things like that. So like Coach Bloomgren announced the captains for the 2020 season here, and we had Sam the Owl replying on there saying, "Oh, like, can't wait to see him in action," stuff like that. So different mascot accounts are and mascot personalities are, you can really do anything with them. It seems like they can get away with anything. But I have a great relationship with, I think, your spirit programs are oftentimes the lifeblood of a college athletics program, because when you look at the differentiating factors between pro sports, pro baseball, basketball, and college athletics, is really the spirit programs, right? When you go to, the Rockets, you don't necessarily have, a pep band playing, every single timeout and whatnot. And so that's kind of the experience factor. And then our dance team and the cheer squad, my wife is actually our head cheer coach as well. So we're all in on that front of things. But, like I said, the silver linings and the things that we've built out, we've created a new in-game experience called the Aviary, and so we are trying to recreate game day as much as possible within that, and so it gives you behind the scenes look access of the video board cameras. So as if you were down on the field high-fiving the players coming out, we would have that view, at least virtually. We would play virtual performances from the dance team and from the cheer team and from the marching out band. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but pretty neat. It's not the mob. It's a retro logo from the 70s of the Rice Owl Band. So I think the mob came shortly after that. But Home Field Apparel, they're a new licensee of us. And 2 weeks ago, our first home game, they launched a new vintage logo of the Rice Owl Band T-shirt. So that's pretty neat. So I don't know. There's just so many, like you said, marketing. There's so many different things that go into it, and different ways to engage with people and tell that story. Like I said, I think our spirit programs are, what kind of make things tick and what makes that game environment and that experience. And so the more that we can create things that people can experience, those experiences, I think is important.
All right. The one thing I always ask guests, because I think it's relevant regardless of who we have on, and it's so critical, is as we look forward, and I'm always looking forward, is what is going to stick going forward? You brought up all these great things that Rice is doing, how they've pivoted, how they've brought in alums, how they've utilized, the mascots, the band, the dance team, et cetera. What are things you think are going to stick in the line of work you're doing right now once this pandemic is over, or once we're able to really have full fans in the stands, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ability to connect with people in a digital nature will continue to evolve and stay the same, and probably rapidly be forced of adoption. I mean, we're doing Zoom right now, but who knows what could happen from that experience where you put on 3D goggles, and we're both like in a virtual 3D realm experience, and it's being streamed live pretty much. You could basically feel like you're in the same room with somebody and having that same experience. So that would be really wild. I've seen that kind of from afar in different variances, but that could be the next thing. I don't know what that looks like, what the digital experience looks like from a live experience as well. And when we are able to have events again, but I think there's two things. One, people crave being together and being in community. So I think when this is all over, we probably won't take for granted as much as we probably did. Oh, well, I can just go to the next game, or I can just watch it on TV. I think there will be more of an appetite for people to come and be at the games, as that may have been fading as we kind of evolved into this more digital world. But then I think the digital experience will just continue to rapidly progress and grow. Like I mentioned, you may be able to experience the game in person, but hey, when you get home, you might be able to watch the highlights of that game as if you were on the field almost. So
yeah, technology
all
is
these
really,
things are kind of continue to evolve.
Yeah, technology is really neat, and I think you're right about the community. I think people will want community and be around community. And then, the last thing I always like to do, and for those who are watching on Facebook or YouTube, I'm happy to provide these links or points in the post, but give us a place to look if we want to learn more about Rice Owls athletics, or to see some of these Twitter things in action that you referenced. What are some of the places we should point people to?
I mean, best place is always ricehouse.com. Download our mobile app, ricehouse.com/mobile app, and you can go download that. The new things and the new website that I'm referring to, of the aviary broadcast and different things like that, you can go to ricehouse.com/community. And so there's a lot there, but most everything you can find on ricehouse.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I think we have a TikTok as well. There's a Snapchat out there, I think, but it's not very active. So there's a lot to be on and be involved in all these different platforms, but yeah, ricehouse.com is probably the hub of everything. So follow us there, and keep up with us, sign up for all of our emails, and stay engaged with everything we got going on Rice Athletics, and we hope to be able to see everybody in person sometime soon.
You brought up TikTok. I'm trying to stay away from doing that at the synagogue. Maybe we'll give in one of these days. We'll see. I know my wife is really picking it up.
I don't make any TikToks, but I do browse it from time to time, and I need to. It can get kind of addicting. So
yeah, that's what I hear. Well, David, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you giving us a glimpse into marketing at Rice Owls Athletics. Again, I appreciate you coming on today. That was great.
Nope, I appreciate you having me.
All right. Well, as always, we'll thank our guest and, of course, David Tanner, who is working things behind the scenes for us. Our next broadcast will be Wednesday, November 11th at 12 p.m. as we welcome our congregant and resident infectious disease expert, Dr. Ed Septimus. Obviously, COVID has been at the forefront, but we're going to start talking about the flu and how the flu season is going to be changing this year. I think it's something to keep an eye on, especially as the weather gets colder. And of course, as a reminder, you can catch any episodes of this that you've missed by going to our YouTube, Emanu YouTube channel. All the episodes are there. We've had great guests for the last few months and look forward to many great guests in the future. But again, thanks for joining us. My name is Jason Plotkin, Program Director at Congregation Emmanuel, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good one.